Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the show. This week, I've chosen to interview a friend of mine who is a mental health therapist. And I really believe that given the current circumstances with the global pandemic that we're in, many of us are struggling mentally and emotionally with being at home, not being able to live our normal daily lives, see our loved ones. And so I really felt it was important to provide some different resources and ideas of ways that we can support our mental and emotional well-being. So I'm going to be joined today by my friend Mimi Cogswell, and I'll just read a little bit about her bio, and then we'll bring her onto the show. So Mimi is a licensed professional counselor and therapist in private practice in Oregon City for the past 17 years. Her specialties include emotion regulation, trauma, anxiety, depression, and relationship therapy. So I'm really excited for the conversation that we're going to have and to share with you some wisdom about just ways that you can start to take care of your mental and emotional well-being in these challenging times that we find ourselves in right now. So I'll bring Mimi on. So welcome to the show, Mimi.
Thank you, Lynn.
I'm excited for our conversation today.
Oh, me too. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about some recommendations that you might have for people who are feeling really stressed out, maybe anxious or fearful about what's going on. I know that's probably something you're working with a lot with your clients right now.
Right. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of video telemental health, just like this,
Yes.
helping people to deal with this huge national crisis. And it's not like anybody's experienced anything quite like this before.
Yes.
So I think we all kind of feel, fear is a common reaction, and not knowing what to expect and being in limbo and not knowing how long this is going to take. And that just really is seizing a lot of people up. So I'm kind of a little bit of a brain kind of nerd.
Me too.
Well, good. I remember that about you. And I fortunately attended a training for yoga for therapists right before this all happened. And something I took away from that has been very helpful during this time. And it's about, I've always been focused on the amygdala, or the limbic system, emotional brain, which is deep down inside the brain, and then the prefrontal cortex and mushroomy parts over the top. But even further down in the brain stem is the reptilian part of the brain. And the speaker was talking about how in order to really calm the amygdala or limbic system, calm and get calm, we have to address what's going on in the reptilian brain. And that requires more of a release. And so it was really helpful and powerful to me because it made sense. And in fact, I found myself on a conference call shortly after, we were, put into shelter in, and people wanted to go to meditation. And I felt it. I felt like I'm not ready for that yet, So in my own experience, I'm noticing that my clients also need that release. And there's a lot of different ways to get release, but, it's really about moving the body.
Yes.
And and this is your bailiwick for sure, is the kind of the healing that you do is releasing it from the body. And so some things I suggest to my clients is just, venting, just talking about it.
Right.
I usually start discussions with, how's COVID affecting your life? And people just share, oh, my kids are home, or I can't work, or I, lost my job, or they just kind of let it all out. They just kind of let it all out. And giving them a chance to also grieve. Like these are significant losses, just like, any kind of loss or death, even how it impacts us. And then after they kind of let that out, and I encourage them to get outside and walk, or, if they're into, like exercise, like yoga or gardening, even just anything that gets their heart rate up and releases some of that stress hormone, some of that cortisol can really help. And then they're able to access calm, and then focusing more on that. So that's one thing I just really highlight is get some fresh air, or some exercise, move the body. Does that make sense?
That totally makes sense. I find that on days like normally I would exercise maybe 5 or 6 days a week. And personally, if I don't have some form of exercise every day, the anxiety gets a little bit more.
No, absolutely. Well, that's one thing. I have 14-year-old twin boys home with me, and we're sheltered in, and they can't see their dad because I'm single mom. So the shelter in thing missing
Right.
is
Not
really
going
hard for
back and
them.
forth.
Yeah, and they don't have school. So we started a tradition of walking every day when my day ends, which is about 5 p.m.
Okay.
around the college. It's a 2-mile walk. And these are kids that don't normally want to really move their bodies, but
14-year-old boys, yeah, probably
yeah,
not.
but it's really become something that we're really cherishing and enjoying. And I can see that, years from now, we'll remember this time
Mhm.
of our walks and conversations and laughing at the dog and that kind of thing. So that's something else that I'm recommending to people is to really be intentional about how you want to use this time.
Yes.
In a lot of ways, it is a gift, I
Hmm.
mean, when will we ever have this much time again?
It's true, I mean,
Yeah.
there are definitely positive experiences of,
Yeah.
realizing what's important and, having time maybe for things that we haven't had time for.
Right, exactly. And so it's all of a sudden you have all this time and people are like, I don't know what to do with myself, right?
Yeah,
So,
that seems to be a big theme
yeah,
for some people too. It's like,
yeah.
what am I supposed to do to fill my days?
Well, and you bring up a good point for some people. Now, some
Right.
people, my introvert clients, and I have a lot of introvert clients, they're loving this. I mean, a lot of them are just like, I hate to say how much I like COVID
Mm,
because they don't have the social
pressure. Yeah.
responsibilities, right? And they love being at home and they love their spouse or whoever's sheltering in with them. And they're just really digging it. And they feel kind of guilty because they're like, gosh, I know this is a real horrible disaster for a lot of people. And yet I'm feeling really, comfortable.
Hmm.
So, we talk about that too, that's okay. You're
Right.
just you. And my extroverted clients, though, do struggle a bit more.
Hmm.
And that brings me to another topic, which is connection.
Yes.
Humans need connection. Like, it's just great for me to just see your face and chat with you today.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Because it
It's
feels very different. We've gone from a
fun.
life, even as somebody who I definitely more identify as an introvert, I still miss,
Mhm. Me
being around
too.
people who are friends and extended
Yeah.
family that we normally see. It's hard.
It's really hard, and we need that connection, whether or not you're an introvert and extrovert.
Right.
Even my introverts who are, sheltering in alone, that's even harder because they
Yes.
like being on with their own. They enjoy their own company, which is great, and yet they're feeling lonely. So,
Yes.
one of my clients put it really well the other day. She said, it's not about social distancing; they should call it physical
Yeah.
distancing.
I've heard several people
Yeah,
wisely say that as well.
I think that's great, and so trying to find ways to connect online and being creative, or just, within in your family, being around each other. I mean, just having ways to connect and just, having meals together. I know one of my clients, she noticed that she has adult children living at home and then her husband, and they're also busy at nighttime because the kids get online with their friends and stuff.
Hmm.
They started a new routine where they meet for lunch every day rather than dinner.
Mm.
And it's really been a nice kind of way for them to meet and connect and talk
Hmm.
because it's just a time where, frankly, they might even just be waking up by now.
Yeah, at a certain
'Cause
age, that's for
they're,
sure.
they're night owls and that kind of thing. And so, but they're just really enjoying this new tradition of lunchtime together rather than dinner. And the dinner, they do their own thing. So I
Hmm.
think connecting and getting creative with that. I don't know if you have any other suggestions on that. I've seen people using apps like Zoom parties or and
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that, or
video
there's something
game.
called like, what is it,
Mhm.
house
House party,
party
yeah.
or something. There's an app that kind of lets you do
To
video
play
chatting,
games or
but you can
something.
play games too. Yeah.
Yeah,
I haven't
exactly.
tried that yet, but I'm curious about it. I'm trying to find
Yeah.
a way actually. We're a
Mhm.
mentor to a 14-year-old girl, and we can't see
Oh,
her. And
oh,
I've offered several times, like, hey, let's like FaceTime, and I don't really get
that's
much
nice.
reaction from that. And so she and I have been playing like Words with Friends, like
Oh, that's
together,
good.
but it doesn't really give us a chance to actually talk, and
Right.
it's hard
Uh-huh.
because like generationally I think 14-year-olds are happier, she's happier to just text me
Oh,
than
yeah.
to talk on the phone or video chat, and I'm like, but I miss your face,
I know. I know. That's a really interesting thing too, is generationally. We're seeing a lot of differences in how
Yes.
people want to connect. Like, you're right, 14-year-olds, like my kids, I thought they'd be really sad to hear that the schools are all shut down for the rest of the year. And for the most part, they're like, no big deal, because I talk to my friends every day on my Xbox. you know? And I'm like,
Interesting.
that's not, so yeah.
I think that's one thing that I've kept in mind too, is everyone, processes it differently, and we all have different coping things. Like what I was finding with my husband too is it's like, what's distracting for him and feels really good does not feel that way to me. Like he can zone out in front of the TV and my brain is able to have a whole conversation while I'm watching a show.
Oh, there you go.
And
That is so true.
It's not distracting for me. I can watch a little bit, and I do watch a bit, but like for me, if we're playing a game together, or if I find something that I'm doing that's a work task, I'm much more absorbed in it, and then I feel more present instead of watching something and then having my brain kind of have this whole little chatter about, well, what about this? And did you read that article about that?
Well, like most women, you probably have an ability to multitask really well.
Yes.
And men tend to be one thing at a time,
Exactly. He puts on a show and he's like absorbed by it. And I'm like, it takes a really special movie or show for me to get that absorbed, that my brain isn't like doing something else at the same time.
Absolutely. I'm the same way. I have a friend and we've been watching movies together virtually. So like we'll 3, 2, 1 start a movie together. A lot of free movies online is great. And then I'm usually like doing other things at the same time, like texting a friend or something. And he's just totally focused. He's like, did you catch that? I'm like, oh yeah. I'm still enjoying it. I just like to do many things simultaneously.
Yeah. It's very interesting because it brings up kind of how we all are, very different, and what feels good.
And it's not even necessarily gender. It could be.
Yeah, no, just individuals. Like for me, like I wanted to start learning Italian, and I find like learning something is really distracting for me, like because it's something I've always wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so I'm motivated, and yet some people, where they're still so overwhelmed that trying to do something or saying, oh, I should be cleaning out my closets, and it's too much. So I'm glad you mentioned that. That's such a good point, And I think a lot of people are feeling pressure, like they should be getting so much more done. Yes.
And you're right. Everybody's unique. And one of my clients sent me an article. I get a lot from great info from my clients.
That's awesome.
It's really great. It was in New York Times. This article says why you shouldn't be getting a lot done during COVID. And it talked about, just that you're stressed out, you're overwhelmed, and people really need to watch comparing themselves to others.
Yeah.
That's why I do encourage my clients to be, just aware or discerning when they're watching social media. That doesn't mean that you should be doing the same thing.
Yeah. If you see somebody saying, I cleaned out my closets and I organized my whole house and I started learning, 3 new languages, and you're like, and I laid on the couch in my sweatpants and, ate snacks and watched a movie. It's all.
That's what you needed to do.
That's what you needed to do. Like it's all okay. You're processing it however you're processing it. And for some people, being busy and active, that
one of my favorite sayings is, you have to be you because everybody else is taken.
Nice.
And we're all special,
Yes.
And so I've been doing some vegging out, you bet, especially in the evening, and just watching Netflix series and having fun. Because we need to have that time just to recharge. And I don't know if you've noticed these COVID-19 suggested schedules on social media.
No.
Kind of something that's been running around, and I had to kind of do some processing with a few of my clients because they got really anxious because they looked at the schedule. It was like the ideal schedule of how to run your family of young children during COVID-19. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, this is actually impossible.
Right. like who says this is the ideal? Right.
I'm like, this is like Pinterest perfect. And some of my clients really took it to heart, like, I'm failing as a parent. And I'm like, no, you're not. You look at you're doing great. Like, maybe pick one thing that's important to you and your family.
Yes.
And like, she picked rollerblading. She wants to teach her kids to rollerblade. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
What a great opportunity for them to rollerblade in the house and in the garage. You don't have to do all of it.
Right.
People just get overwhelmed by so much they could be doing.
Yes. So, and then that comparisonitis, or seeing something that says, well, here's how to make the most of your time. It's like, some days you just want to lie there and have a good cry, and that's valid and important too.
Yeah, having a good cry is another form of release too,
Mm-hmm.
which is, again, to get to that calm. I mean, I joke with my clients sometimes, because I've just been doing this for so long, I've been doing it for 20 years. I'll say, they'll be like, oh, I'm going to cry. And I'm like, well, that's kind of my job. Is I know that we're getting into the work we need to do when you're able to
Right.
cry. Like, my job is to make people cry sometimes. And that's a release, though. That's like,
Yes.
now you're releasing, and now you can walk out of here feeling better.
Right. Yeah. Because
So that,
oftentimes when we do have a good emotional cry, it's like we feel,
mhm,
even though sometimes our eyes might be a little bit tired and, and feel a
yeah.
little gritty, but we feel emotionally a lot lighter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. It's like, it's so cathartic,
Yes. It's like,
It
oh, that
really
heavy
is.
weight of, whatever it was that I was
Right.
holding on to is just
Yeah.
gone. And
And then maybe you do feel a little sleepy and you probably need a nap. So,
yeah. Yeah. And what a great
yeah.
time now to be able to, just honor
Mhm.
that. I think it's great to just
Exactly.
learn to go a little bit more with our own rhythm too. I think that is one of the gifts of this is like,
Yes.
like not everybody can do that because obviously if you have small children and they're waking up at certain times, like you may not be able to sleep in, but some
Right.
people may be able to be like, oh, I'm just going to honor when my natural rhythm is to just sleep a little bit more,
Oh,
later into the
yeah.
morning or,
Oh, absolutely. And the kids can sleep in too. It's
right.
actually great. The whole family gets into a rhythm, and that's a good word for it too. When it comes to schedules, one of my clients yesterday, she's just a really astute mom. Her kids are the ones that are older now, but she was saying that we've gotten into rhythms. We don't do a schedule. We don't do
Yes.
the clock of 11 o'clock. It's time to go outside and exercise. It's
Yes.
more, okay, we wake up, and she and her husband have this rhythm now of having time for the two of them to talk and kind of have a husband-wife meeting and just kind of sit and kind of snuggle a little bit and just
Right.
start
How are
their
you kind of
day.
checking in with each other? How are you
Yeah,
doing today? Like one of the things that I've been
absolutely.
playing with too with my husband is just like, what do you need today from me?
Oh,
And then vice versa. It's like, what's one thing that
that's
I can do to
beautiful.
help you through this today? Like, do you just need
Oh,
extra hugs today? Or do you, you need
wow.
just the
Music to my
ability to
ears.
the ability to just choose what you want to do because I think on the weekends we were running into like during the
Hmm.
week I've been a bit busier, I'm still working, and
Hmm.
then on the
Hmm.
weekends it's like all of this time all of a sudden, and then like feeling like we should be doing everything together when, as I said before, we don't cope exactly in the same way. So
Right.
now we have this kind of like, even on the weekends, we can have a couple hours where, he zones out in front of a movie and I play the
Right.
piano and I do what feels good to me.
Well, and I also do couples therapy. I don't know if I've mentioned that before, but I'm doing a lot of couples therapy
I'm
online right
sure.
now. It's increasing.
I'm
And
sure it brings up
yeah,
a lot, just being around
yeah.
somebody 24/7,
Well,
just
and plus it's an opportunity, honestly, because a lot of people they work so much they don't even hardly see each other. So it's kind of a
right.
catch-22. But
Yes.
you bring up a point about opposites attract, and most
Hmm.
of the couples I know are introverts slash extroverts. Sometimes they're both introverts, and
Hmm.
that's wonderful. But even if you're both introverts, you both have different needs
Right.
and time requirements to recharge. And so people are needing to communicate exactly like you guys are doing. Here's what I need today.
Right.
Like I need an hour to go alone on a walk or whatever it might be.
Right. Yeah,
And
I just need to do this by myself. Or, I really need us to play a game and interact together and not just lay in
yeah,
front of the TV for the whole day.
I need some interaction. Exactly. Exactly. And so people, by communicating that this is what I need, that helps so much with this
Hmm.
time. Just even friends, just saying, hey, I need to have a conversation. Texting isn't really filling me up right now.
Right.
That's wonderful communication. And I think the other thing is we all need to be aware that everybody is not at their best right now. I mean,
Yes.
for the most part, everybody's a little bit off keel, and it's kind of ups and downs as the
Yes.
news and things start evolving. So recognizing that we're probably more vulnerable to negative emotions,
Hmm.
and cutting each other slack and just saying, oh, do you need something from me? Or
Right.
do you need some space? Whatever you
Right.
need,
Yeah.
right?
Instead of just assuming, or
Right.
getting reactive
Yes.
to
Oh,
something from
yes. I,
someone.
I am the queen of assuming.
It's easy to do sometimes, to just be like, oh, well, you did that because,
Right.
whatever, instead of
Right.
like,
Well, we do
oh,
that, as our brains go fast and we short circuit the brain. We try to get to the quick answers by assuming,
hmm
but yet that's not so great. And we can't read people's minds, in
hmm
relationships. So it's great for safety, right? Like if, you're walking down a dark alley and you hear footsteps, you're going to run because you're assuming
right.
somebody's coming after you. That's safety.
But yeah,
Um,
not always so helpful in your one-on-one relationships in life.
Right. Oh, it's just always shifting. I think one of the things about COVID-19 is I've been creating my own list of silver linings of
Mm.
COVID-19,
hmm
is and a lot of people have mentioned this, that there's really I think an evolution going on right now.
hmm
A huge shift in how we're going to be as a society after this. It's already happening. And one of my clients pointed out that, it's like there's never could have been a better time in history than right now for this to happen, because we have so much ability to communicate digitally and to
Yes.
connect digitally, and we're in a high-tech society already, and this kind of is leapfrogging us from a work mode to be more open to the possibilities of connecting digitally, even though
Yes.
I still believe face-to-face in real life
Oh
is better.
yeah.
There's a whole vibe thing going on there.
Yeah, I
And
know some days
yeah,
like some friends get together on Zoom and I'm just like, I just don't feel connected that way. And I just
I
honor that.
know.
And I'm like, I'm not going to join you because that doesn't
Yeah.
feel like what I need right now. I need to go outside and sit in the sun.
I I totally can relate to that, especially after 6 hours of digital connecting with clients. I
Yes.
can't do it anymore, and
Yeah.
it's hard, and good for you. And that's one thing I'm learning, is just to honor that when I
hmm
feel that way, and to just find a way to communicate that, like, "Hey, I'll pass this time, but I'll be thinking about you guys," or,
Right.
another time. Yeah,
Yeah,
it
that's
just
kind of how I've communicated it as, I really, I still love you guys. I love seeing you, but right now, like being on Zoom with a bunch of you just doesn't feel like what I need right
Yeah,
now.
exactly. Well, and I don't know if you've noticed it, but I had a client who's a freelancer, and she's like, I am in freelancer paradise right now. She's like, my business is booming because
Hmm.
people can't get things done that the way they were before. They're
Right.
reaching out to all her business has been online, and she's getting a lot of inquiries, and
Hmm.
people are having to just totally readjust their product, I guess. And I mean, I'm not a
hmm
marketing person, but
Right.
it's their whole way of positioning themselves, and
hmm
so it's kind of her specialty. So I think that this is a big boost for those that already are doing distance healing,
hmm
or communicating this way, because people are really out there looking for information right now
Yeah,
and
it's
needing support.
definitely, we still need connection. We still need support. We still need different resources. And it's just learning,
Yeah.
what else can help us. I feel fortunate that the work that I do, half of my clients at least are usually not in person with me anyway to begin with. And to be able to offer, health and wellness support without that risk of, coming into contact with someone physically is
Yeah.
just tremendously beneficial.
Well, and people need you right now. They definitely do. I mean,
And
but I'm
people
talking.
need you too,
Oh,
obviously, because there's a lot to be processed in this,
yeah,
in
to
our
put to my
trauma brain. And
And I'm grateful for that, of course, to take care of my family and be able to continue to get paid.
hmm
And that's really hard. I think people that are losing jobs and are financially scurrying for help,
yes,
I love seeing how everybody's trying, reaching out and offering support.
yes,
And it's good to see that we're going to have some benefits offered from the government for that. But I was just going to say some other things about getting through this time, and
yeah, please,
grat- gratitude. Gratitude is so
yes,
helpful.
yes,
Like, those that have lost their jobs, so grateful that they're getting some help from the government, or that, I see people in the community reaching out. A friend of mine on social media was just saying, hey, there's this wonderful local, company that raises, grass-fed beef, and they're having a hard time because the restaurants are all closed. They're usually
right,
the clients, and so let's help them. And so people are like, going different ways, going out of their way to help local businesses.
yes, yeah,
That's so cool.
Yeah, I
thinking about,
think it
you know,
makes us rethink too, how we
yeah.
can do things. We've been having groceries delivered because my husband falls in the high risk category, and
Right.
we have been able to help somebody who's part of one of the communities I belong to, because she created a
Hmm.
business that she's doing that kind of shopping.
Oh,
And
wonderful.
we chose to support her instead of like a company like Instacart, because I know they don't
Mhm.
always treat the people who actually do the shopping
Mm.
as well. So it's
Yeah.
like, to be able to, it feels good to be able to help somebody who's a single mom who lost her other
Mhm.
job, and this is
Oh,
her way of making sure she's
wow.
taking care of her
Good for
family.
her. What a great way to pivot and find a different way to support yourself. And I think that's happening. I think a lot of people are looking at whole new careers because of this, you know.
Hmm.
Not to, I mean, we still need them to do their careers after this is over.
Yes. But some people maybe who weren't happy in what they were doing, it is a
Yeah.
time to explore, well, what would be something I would want to do moving forward.
Oh, absolutely. I see a lot of education going on, you know, a lot of
Hmm.
online education. The colleges are really just kicking into high gear,
Hmm.
hoping the schools will come back to video education. They kind of stepped away from that, but hopefully they will come back to it, which I think is good. They're trying to find a
Yes.
way for all the kids to have equal opportunity with that, with
Yeah, I
technology.
imagine it's challenging for sure
That's
to
hard.
have
And I get that.
access. And
But I think the biggest thing of all that I've heard people say over and over again, that the silver lining of this is that it's like this huge world pause, just like
yes.
everything just went, boop, and we're
Yeah.
all just having to slow down
Yes.
and reevaluate what really matters is like I look
Yes.
at it, what really matters, and our intentions, and then we actually can act on those intentions and say, for example, with my kiddos, and the school inspired this to a certain extent, but I really believe in it, is creativity,
Yes.
creating time to be off electronics and create. And I'm challenging my kids to think of something to create. It's been hard for them.
Yes. Yeah.
They want to use their electronics and do
Yeah.
electronic things. And I'm like, no, I'd like you to write a letter to your grandpa. So they wrote their very first letter to their grandpa,
Wow.
which,
Yeah.
I taught them how to, I mean, it's amazing what we just don't do anymore like we
Right.
used to. How
We
to,
yeah, we don't send things in the mail,
we don't
getting
address an
getting
envelope. These are still important skills. And creating a connection that they probably wouldn't have done if it wasn't for COVID. So
Mhm.
I'm grateful. Their grandpa's grateful. you know?
Yes, nice. Yeah, and it's been interesting too, just seeing how nature has been healing too. I think that's one of
Oh,
the things that
yes.
really warms my heart of, even though it's very sad, the other side of things of people being very sick and dying, but seeing,
Yes.
just the pollution levels dropping, animals being able
Yes.
to reappear in their natural habitat. So,
Oh, that is so true. Oh, yeah. And the carbon footprint has just really come down. And that's
yes,
that's another evolutionary thing that I certainly would like to see more of that
yes.
to save our resources and nature.
Yes, and
Dots have
thinking
never been
about
happier. Oh, go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah, thinking about, not driving as much, to not have that impact on things.
Oh, exactly. Another
And what
another
jobs
benefit.
actually can be done, virtually? Why does everybody always, certain
Right.
jobs we don't have to go like commute, and yet,
Mhm.
I hope that is something that gets reevaluated. Like, wouldn't that be better
Absolutely.
for the environment if a lot of people could work at home?
For environment, for family, I mean, there's so many levels. It can be done a different way. And I think we've been, and a lot of corporations have been playing with, doing less travel and doing things more
Hmm.
virtually. But now it's like, well, we're forced to.
Right.
So now we're going to have to step up the technology and make it work. So,
Hmm.
well, yeah. So something else I was going to add was, where did I put that? Oh, just to, with your intentions about your extra time. Again,
Hmm.
people get a little crazy about, well, I'm not being productive enough. Like,
Hmm.
like a person I was talking to, she really doesn't have 8 hours of work a day
Yeah.
at the office. So much of that time was spent talking to people, running
Go right,
errands,
going to the
checking
copy
email.
machine, going
So much of that. And so it's like, we've talked about just be realistic, and you probably only have 3 hours of heads down work to do. And so, writing down for people that are getting anxious or they're not being productive enough, writing down how much you're actually getting done
right.
sometimes can help with that anxiety. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
I actually got everything done today, and I still
Yes.
have time to do some self-care.
Yeah.
meditation, which is really powerful.
Yeah.
Meditation.
I mean, I find I have a bit more time in my day too, because there's not, when I was seeing people in person, I was driving to a different place, so there
Right.
was time
Me
back
too.
and forth. And,
Hmm.
now it's like work is just at home. So then,
Yeah.
sometimes it gets done a bit faster. And by, mid-afternoon, it's like, okay, let's go outside or let's do something else.
When you're still getting just as much, if not more, done, it's just different kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
That busy work has been taken out, and that's really great, actually. I think it
Mm-hmm.
because I people get caught up in I need to get more done. People want to be
Yes.
productive sometimes, and I'm just like, I bet you did a lot today. If you
Yes.
sat down and just write down what you're doing and check marking off the list that you might have in the morning of things you want to get done, you're going to be really productive and feel a sense of mastery over your
Yes.
environment, which is
Yes.
really powerful.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's important that people give themselves more credit for what they did do. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
instead
That's
of
one of the,
thinking, well, I didn't fill a full 8 hours of something, or, and I've seen things too
yeah.
about, well, when parents are homeschooling their kids, it's not actually like to expect them to fill that same amount of time as when they were in a classroom. It doesn't actually make sense. Like,
No, not at all. I mean, I have a client who's a principal, and she does elementary, and she's
mm-hmm.
like, yeah, for our kindergartners, they're not going to get more than 45 minutes a day of
Yeah.
online education, which now they're switching to email, but that's a different thing, because they don't have the attention span, and so our
Right.
teachers have to be a gift that she's really excited about. Is the teachers have to be very intentional again
Mm-hmm.
and specific about what the goals are for education in that small amount of time.
Right.
And then, of course, it's longer for like middle schoolers. I think it's going to be maybe 3 hours, and
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be shorter though.
Yeah. And
And,
then, as you kind of pointed out, teaching kids life skills is great too. Like if they've
oh,
never
yeah,
addressed an envelope, or, learning how
right.
to cook something in the kitchen or do their
Oh,
own laundry
absolutely.
if they're old enough.
No, it's. I was talking to a psychiatric nurse practitioner that specializes in kids on the spectrum,
Mm-hmm.
and she was saying this is such a valuable time for parents to teach kids those kinds of life skills and routine. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we get up, we brush our teeth, we change our clothes. I mean, these are things they do anyway, but to really
Right.
be more specific about it, because these routines are, it's that rhythm that they're creating for their when they become adults, and that
Right. This is
they
kind of how we
want to do
go
that.
about life.
Yeah, very important. Very important. Yeah. Well, I mean, create time to create and time to educate, like you mentioned, learning Italian.
Mm-hmm.
One of my friends, he's been setting one big goal like per week, or like
Mm-hmm.
learning Italian might be for longer than a week.
Right.
And it's just this big goal. And then he also has like one smaller project per day that he tries to do on his days off.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, I'm going to fix the sink or whatever it might be. And
Yes.
that's given him a sense of, just mastery again, a mastery over self and over environment, that I have something
Yes.
I've accomplished. That feels
Yes.
good. We
Yeah,
need
yeah, I've been finding, I'm not super big on like weeding and stuff, but I went out one day, it was sunny, and I was like, I need to be outside. And then I did a little bit of like cleaning up in the front yard, and,
I bet that felt good.
yeah, it was nice to just, feel like it was something that was accomplished. And, the
Yeah.
house looked a little bit nicer from just, my little bit of half an hour, 45 minutes of being out there. And I'm going to kind of keep working at it. And
I encourage my clients and myself to every day do something that makes you feel a sense of mastery over your environment,
mm-hmm.
because and especially in a situation like this where, let's face it, we feel sort of like out of control. We don't know what's going to happen next. We're in
Mm-hmm.
limbo. That happens a lot
Right.
in life, periods of our lives. If you can do something every day where you're like, I did it, I could
Right.
see the accomplishment. Like I'm learning. It sounds funny, but I'm actually learning how to do paint by numbers,
Mm,
and just every day when I make a little progress on that painting, I'm like, oh, that feels good. I'm creating. I always wanted to do something like that, and now I'm doing
mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Taking it as time that, we can do something that we've wanted to learn, or, and like you said,
yeah.
something that gives you a sense of accomplishment or mastery. And some days that's just even, I've seen there's like a little checklist of points of like, I got dressed and I got showered, and, like all of those things that we have to give ourselves credit for
Oh
sometimes
my
too.
goodness.
But
Absolutely, especially right now.
yeah, exactly.
Taking a
Like,
shower, you don't really have to right now. So when you do,
yeah,
it's a big
what
deal.
keeps me on track with that is if I have to show up on a video, and if not, it's like sometimes it's like I'm not gonna bother with it, except it does make me feel better, so it's
I
like,
know it's like that. Yeah. And of course, that's a personal choice how often you want to shower, but it is effort. And I think
mm-hmm,
one of my clients, she struggles to get out of bed. She's very depressed. And so when she
mm-hmm,
gets up to take a shower, we're like, lady, you just got a gold star today. That's great.
yes, yeah,
And
so
it's hard to do it, but there's actually a skill involved in that. And I call it, it's from something called dialectical behavioral therapy. It's called opposite action.
mm,
And so even though she didn't want to, she wanted to lay in bed and knock it
right,
out. By doing the opposite of that, getting up and actually physical activity of taking a shower, the brain actually starts to release more dopamine and
mm,
serotonin. It
mm-hmm,
recognizes, oh, well, this is an action you do when you're feeling good, and it releases a chemistry. And within like 20 minutes, people do feel better. It's amazing
nice.
how well that works.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we're kind of primed. I know some of those neurotransmitters kind of prime us to want to do it again because it's like, oh, that felt good,
Yeah.
so let me repeat that tomorrow and get
Yeah.
out of bed and take a shower or whatever the activity
Exactly.
is.
That's like that reward. It's like the brain recognizes that and says, "Oh, that felt good."
Right.
So
So
it's
let's do it
hard.
again.
It's hard to do, but I've worked with people, and when they get themselves to finally do it, they do feel that little bit of difference. And
Hmm.
like you said, it just gets easier every time. It starts to get
Right.
easier and easier. Yeah, it's good
Great.
stuff.
Yep. Well, any final words of wisdom that you'd like to share as we
Um,
wrap up our time for this interview?
well, I guess I'm a big fan of mindfulness, and I think
Yes.
this is a time that we are slowed down and we can be present. And being present helps us get grounded. And so
Hmm.
noticing the five senses, what you see
Yes.
and smell and taste and touch and feel, it really helps you to be present. I find nature, being outside, is a
Yeah.
great place to be mindful. And you don't have to be meditating, although that's lovely. I do recommend an app called Insight Timer
I
for
love that
over,
one too.
isn't that great? Over 10,000 free guided meditations. But I mean, just being, take a moment to just be present with whatever you're doing and be grateful because
Hmm.
this too will pass, just like everything else. Change is
Hmm.
inevitable, and this is just a season in our lives that will
Hmm.
pass. Enjoy it
Yeah.
as much as you can.
As much as you can. Yeah. I think
Right.
that's great advice. And I love that, the mindfulness. I've been every day we go out in the yard and we have a tree that's blooming out. We take a picture of it to kind of have
Oh,
like a progression of like watching the blooms, and it's my
oh,
favorite
I love
tree. It's
that.
just a beautiful tree, and so it's fun to just go out there and every day it's like, what does it look like today, whereas
Oh,
in most springs we're busy, I'm like, I'll look out there, I'm like, oh, it looks really pretty, but I don't sit there and spend a minute with the tree and just look at how much it's changed in 24 hours.
that's a wonderful way to practice mindfulness. I love that.
And I think spring is
Right.
such a great time because we have all of the things coming
Yeah.
back to life, all of the flowers and things. So just being able to go out and, your yard or on a little walk and notice what changes from day to day.
Well, it certainly is helping with just COVID, sort of like a winter, right? We're all kind of inside like a big snowstorm,
Yes.
you know, and having spring outside reminds us that we will have spring again with our society and connecting with our culture again. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, I think that's a
Yes,
great
it's
metaphor
happening.
for it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. This has
Yeah.
really been fun. I've
Yeah.
enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with the audience. I really enjoyed our conversation as well.
All right. Talk to you soon.
All right. Take care, everybody.